Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Wellbe podcast. This podcast is designed to help you learn, expand what you thought was possible, and become as empowered as you can be in your health. This episode is one of the best things I do, straight up. It's called the Wellbe Wrap-Up, and if you've been around in the Wellbe community for a while, you've probably heard of it. Every few months, we go through all the important news that's come out related to health and wellness and pick out 5 to 10 of the most important stories we think you need to know to protect your and your family's health and make easy changes shown to improve your health. Sometimes the things we share are shocking, sometimes they're just cool nuggets, but all of the stories are always chosen to help you become as empowered as you can be in your health. In lieu of our normal fourth quarter wellness and health news wrap-up, we're ending the year with a different sort of wrap-up. In the spirit of end-of-year reflection, we've put together a list of the most important stories related to health and wellness from all of 2022, rather than just the past 3 months. Some of these stories are brand new, some were highlighted in past wrap-ups, but all of them, rest assured, have implications for your health. So without further ado, these top 10 are in no particular order of importance, so let's just jump right in. Story number 1, and this is a brand new one, 2 new studies published earlier this month found a link between gut bacteria and depression. The studies include a combined 4,000 people of different backgrounds and controlled for a number of different variables, and both arrived at the same conclusion. Levels of certain bacteria were associated with symptoms of depression. Specifically, they found that high levels of the bacteria in the family, and I will definitely butcher this, Lactobacillus, among others, were linked to depression, as were low levels of the good bacteria in the family Ruminococcacea. These studies, which are among the largest to date on the relationship between the gut microbiome and mental health, drive home the power of the gut-brain connection, which we covered in our June wrap-up. Then we were discussing 2 more studies on how gut health impacts mental health, including one showing that stimulation of the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that connects your gut to your brain, can be an effective treatment for therapy-resistant chronic depression, and another study showing that switching to a Mediterranean diet alleviated depression symptoms. If you're interested in improving your own gut health, and therefore also improving your mental health, download the free gut health guide that you'll find on the homepage at getwellbe.com. Story number 2, which is also brand new, and speaking of gut health, a new study found that an unhealthy gut microbiome can help breast cancer spread to other parts of the body. The research, which was done on mice but then corroborated with evidence from humans, showed that the gut microbiome can influence the behavior of mast cells, which are blood cells that help regulate the body's immune response to disease. When gut health is poor, it causes mast cells to accumulate in the breast, from where it can facilitate the spread of breast cancer. This finding has big implications, since when breast cancer metastasizes, which means it spreads to other parts of the body, the survival rate is only 29%. The researchers believe that by identifying this link between the gut and mast cells, doctors may be able to prevent the spread and recurrence of breast cancer in patients. Story number 3. This one's also new. Since the beginning of the pandemic, there's been an increase in the rate of idiopathic precocious puberty among girls. The rare condition, which basically means when puberty begins before the age of 8 for unexplained reasons, has spiked since March 2020, and one new study suggests a surprising reason: smartphone use. The study exposed 18 immature female rats, immature meaning young, female rats to a spectrum of blue light that mimicked the light on smartphones, and found that the rats exposed to the light for longer periods of time showed signs of puberty earlier than the rest. The researchers believe that this is because blue light tells our body to stay awake, which lowers our melatonin levels. And though melatonin is known for making us sleepy, it's also an important hormone for lots of other things in the body. So when its levels shift, so do the levels of other hormones. Notably, the rats exposed to more blue light had lower levels of melatonin and higher levels of reproductive hormones like estrogen and luteinizing hormone. Story number 4. This one is also brand new. A nonprofit consumer advocacy group tested various articles of clothing from popular athletic brands and found dangerous levels of the chemical BPA in many of them. Specifically, they found that sports bras sold by Athleta, Pink, ASEA, The North Face, Brooks, All in Motion, Nike, and Fila could expose the wearers to 22 times the safe limit of BPA. Athletic shirts from The North Face, Brooks, Mizuno, Athleta, New Balance, and Reebok had similarly dangerous levels. BPA has been linked to diabetes, asthma, cardiovascular disease, obesity, cancer, and premature death, among other health issues. And it can be absorbed through the skin very easily and quickly. And given the fact that people sweat in athletic clothing, chances are high absorption rates are even higher in those cases. The nonprofit group has sent legal notice to the companies, giving them 60 days notice to remedy their violations before a complaint is filed. In terms of avoiding toxins in our daily lives, we often think of personal care products, of course, household cleaning products, foods and drinks, and medicines, but many of us don't think of clothing as something that can be harmful. This research is a reminder that what you wear matters a lot too, because your skin is your biggest organ, after all, and it can be affected by what it comes in contact with. Story number 5 is also brand new. In just the past 2 months, 2 major stories have broken linking common hair products to cancer. On the one hand, Unilever recalled many of its aerosol dry shampoo products, which included incredibly popular brands like Dove, Tresemme, Nexus, Suave, and more, after discovering that they were contaminated with the carcinogen benzene. In the very recent past, other popular aerosol products, like other dry shampoo brands and various sunscreens, were also recalled due to benzene contamination, suggesting that this isn't an isolated issue, but rather a problem with aerosols in general. Benzene, a known contaminant of petroleum products, can result in leukemia and other blood cancers. Around the same time that news came out, research was released showing that women who used chemical straightening products, commonly used among Black women, were at a higher risk for uterine cancer. Researchers found that using these products frequently, 4 times a year or more than doubled a woman's risk of developing uterine cancer. That is huge. More than doubled the woman's risk of developing uterine cancer. I just thought I had to repeat that because it was crazy. The study in question followed more than 30,000 women over the course of 11 years, making these findings quite significant. Both of these pieces of news underscore how important it is to use vetted non-toxic products, which you can find in the Wellbe non-toxic product database, which you should definitely check out on getwellbe.com. It's fabulous. And to always seek out organic hair salons when possible. We also have an organic hair salon city guide covering over a dozen cities. That's a free guide that you can go download on getwellbe.com, so definitely do that. Personal care products, which includes hair care, can have a massive impact on your health and are one of the most important areas of your life to detox. Story number 6 is one we covered in a prior wrap-up, but it's one of the biggest stories of the year and maybe even the decade. A 6-month investigation from Science magazine uncovered evidence that findings from an influential study on Alzheimer's were fabricated. The original study, published in the journal Nature in 2006, posited that a certain type of protein formed sticky plaques in the brain, which were the primary cause of Alzheimer's. This finding has informed over a decade of research and hundreds of millions of dollars in research funding. But it turns out the study's findings may have been based on fraudulent evidence, as they believe the pictures showing this plaque were doctored and fabricated. Story number 7 was also covered in a previous wrap-up, and I think it's as big, if not bigger, than the Alzheimer's findings story. After years of being called into question, a comprehensive large-scale meta-analysis, which means it's an analysis of many other analyses. So that means many different points of data were taken into this finding. This meta-analysis has determined that there's no scientific basis for the idea that a serotonin imbalance causes depression. This theory is incredibly pervasive in not only the general public, but also clinical and academic settings. And it's the justification behind the massive SSRI, which is antidepressant, industry, making this new finding truly earth-shattering for the pharmaceutical industry, as it doesn't really justify why somebody would take an SSRI antidepressant for depression. Story number 8 was also from earlier in 2022, but quite a big deal and pretty disturbing. Though it seems like it was in the distant past now, remember the formula shortage earlier this year? It was a massive problem that caused tremendous stress to parents everywhere and put countless babies at risk. And after the fact, alarming evidence emerged showing that it could have all been prevented. In fact, there were 2 smoking guns showing that the powers that be didn't properly protect consumers. First, a federally filed OSHA complaint, which is a whistleblower complaint, in February 2021 showed that Abbott, one of the biggest manufacturers of baby formula in the US and in the world, and whose plant shutdown triggered the formula shortage, knew about the problems at the plant for 8 months and did nothing, endangering millions of babies. The same whistleblower filed another OSHA complaint 8 months later, in October 2021, and then the factory finally shut down 4 months after that. Second, documents were revealed that the FDA investigated more formula-related infant deaths than it initially reported. So all around, a total preventable tragedy, and not enough people know how bad this really was. Story number 9 was a huge development in our understanding of how viruses interact with one another, and big news for those with autoimmune diseases like MS. This one came out earlier this year. Epstein-Barr virus is intimately related to many aspects of disease and health, and there were several studies this year underscoring this fact. In fact, in one, researchers found that Epstein-Barr virus might be the single biggest cause of multiple sclerosis, while another found an association between reactivated Epstein-Barr virus and long-haul COVID symptoms. Speaking of COVID, last but not least, story number 10 is, of course, about COVID, because how could it not be? After 2 full pandemic years, 2022 was the year of reckoning for a lot of things COVID related. In our April wrap-up, we covered 2 big news items on the virus and vaccines. First, research showed that the natural immunity produced by contracting COVID-19 had a stronger protective effect than the vaccine. And second, news that the CDC suppressed data on how effective booster shots were for people ages 18 to 49. 2022 was also the year the J&J COVID vaccine was banned by the FDA for people under 18 for safety concerns, and then not advised for all others unless other COVID vaccines were not available and somebody needed one. It was also the year that former White House COVID response coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, admitted, "I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection. 50% of the people who died from the Omicron surge were older and vaccinated." And so with that, the truth always comes out, right? Even if it's originally called misinformation. So we bring all this news to you because knowledge is power, and it's always the first step towards change. Remember when people didn't know how dangerous cigarettes were? Well, now they do. And people make different choices because they have this knowledge. And hundreds of millions of lives around the globe have been saved as a result. So when I say knowledge is power, and I say this podcast is about empowering you in your health, I do this wrap up for that exact reason. So that's it for this episode. Is there someone or multiple people in your life who might benefit from knowing this information? If so, please share this episode with them. Or you can share the link to the written version, which is on getwellbe.com, and you'll find that in the show notes. And while you're there, become a WellBe Insider to get all of our latest content and special offers weekly in your inbox. You'll also get a free copy of my audio guide on how to feel the best you've ever felt and heal anything. The 10 things you need to optimize your health and heal any health issue, big or small, naturally. Even if you're the healthiest person out there, I promise you'll learn something you didn't know that can optimize your health. If you haven't already and found this episode helpful or interesting, subscribe to the podcast. This way you'll never miss a new episode, and they'll be delivered to you whenever we publish a new one. This is your host, Adrienne Nolan-Smith, and thanks again for listening to the WellBe Podcast.